The stats they came up with, that innovation related to AI could displace 6 to 7% of the US workforce if it's widely adopted, but the impact is most likely transitory because new job opportunities will be created by the same technology to put people into work in other capacities.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialist James Gurd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy of leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX.
This episode is sponsored by Shopify. It is a talking head today with myself and Paul. We've been talking about doing this for a few weeks, and it's one of those kind of take some time out, have a think about the state of the industry and what is happening, what are the things we're seeing, what are the things we're hearing, what are our clients currently most obsessed about, what are the big trends, and also what's some of the noise out there that we don't particularly agree with and want to dispel some of the myths that might be circulating. So the key areas we're going to focus on today, we've got one, the first one is around strategic partnerships with local delivery companies. So one of the examples is the recent John Lewis and Uber Eats announcement. On payments, payment diversification, and I guess the mainstreaming of like buy now, pay later, and the acceptance of that into more premium brands. Got personalized shopping, and where is personalization? Because personalization is like tomorrow. It's always been coming, but it's never arrived. Structured data and the criticality of it, and how that's going to be hot news again with the growth in agentic traffic to websites which need structured data, and why the fundamentals of technical SEO are more important than ever. Then we're going to look at the agentic side of customer service and how that's been adopted and the benefits of that. Then we're going to come on to the chat that AI is still mostly being massively hyped, and some of the articles out there saying that if e-com brands aren't rapidly adopting AI into their day-to-day work, that they are going to become obsolete and fail. We think that's sort of bollocks. But talking about what the reality is, what's actually happening, and where it's starting to embed itself. Those are the main. So have I missed anything, Paul?
I don't think so. No, not out of the things that we've got here. Although you've got voice activated search at the bottom. Other than that.
Oh yeah, and that kind of links in from the AI stuff. So and there are lots of other things being talked about in the industry. There are vertical specific, there are regional specific, but we're trying to pick out some of the core trends and also reflect on a lot of the conversation that we're seeing out in social, specifically in places like LinkedIn. So let's start with strategic partnerships. I found this really interesting, and I know Boots and Deliveroo had a partnership earlier, and you referenced that to me when we were prepping for this call. I read an article shortly after John Lewis announced its collab with Uber Eats. Martin Newman shared a post about it on LinkedIn. And I found that really interesting because with John Lewis, let's face it, the brand heritage, the brand reputation, and the size of the John Lewis partnership business is huge. And one of the big challenges of business of that size and complexity with the sheer product range it's got is how can it maintain a competitive advantage in the customer experience piece and the delivery bit across its product range and stay relevant. And Uber Eats, it offers quite a wide local delivery network and speed of delivery for smaller items. So really interesting to see them piloting that in a couple of specific areas on specific product categories and targeting those product categories based on what sells well in those regional areas. So I'm intrigued. For me, this is a sign of where larger organizations will be moving to in terms of their collabs, not just like brand mashups where they get together with other designers and product owners, but actually service mashups where they can start to be competitive with the likes of an Amazon, but through localized partnerships.
So this actually reminds a bit of a few things. So I would say I'm a Deliveroo super user. So I use Deliveroo constantly. Like I use it at least once a day. And I've been using it for grocery shopping for a long time. And I think basically there's loads of people that are trying to copy that model. But I was just thinking how interesting it would be to see like store level data on Deliveroo and Uber Eats versus like in-store traffic or revenue, etc. But yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see some numbers around the growth of it, particularly as you get into more central London. But I think the primary reason for this is a new customer. So there's been a few times where I've been in the office and I've forgotten my football boots or I've forgotten my gym stuff, and I've tried to use Deliveroo to find products, and I've not been able to. But I do think we'll get a lot more retail stores using these like channels, I guess, primarily to target a new customer, but also, as you've written down here, like, you know, better manage inventory, etc., etc. But the other thing I was going to say is something that I noticed last week, and I'm trying to remember the product it's for, but I was for AU Vodka, actually, who we just started working with. I was searching for some of their searching for their brands, some of their product names, etc. And I noticed that Uber Eats are super prominent on Google Shopping, and I assume it's all geographic. But I thought it was quite interesting where they've got basically a little PDP, and they've then got all of the options that you can buy it from. But I thought that was interesting, particularly on desktop. That they're basically essentially trying to target people via Google Shopping.
I mean, there's quite a few conversation strands that come out of this. Also, with the recent Amazon's decision around its paid media as well, and the potential advantages that opens up for other people to get, you know, greater visibility in the bidding. But for me, I think it's also a potential. It's not just a customer service play for likes of journalists being able to offer speedy delivery to specific areas for particular product ranges that might be, like you are alluding to, distressed purchases or everyday essentials. But it's also the potential cost benefit, because tapping into last mile delivery and speedy delivery and fast delivery slots from traditional couriers or with your own fleets can be quite challenging and costly to make the unit economics work. Whereas Deliveroo's, Ubers already have that set up, and they have a relatively lean cost model. So I'd imagine there's probably a lens on this within those businesses of, can we actually get the costs lower than we currently can in order to offer a more competitive service, so that the barriers to the customer using it are lower than ever before.
I think if this does take off and people like Boots see decent volume, I think what we'll probably start to see, because at the minute I think it's all still driven by retail stores and like the inventory available in the store. I think so with the top volume restaurants on Deliveroo, they've now got their own little kitchens. I don't know if you've seen this, but like, so I noticed probably about 18 months ago that all of the big name chain, or not chains, but like Dishoom and a decent sushi restaurant and a few other places started selling to where I am, which is Zone 4 North London. And they've started opening up these hubs in like the bottom of Zone 3, where they've basically just got kitchens for the places with the most demand, and then they're Deliveroo only, essentially. So it'd be interesting to see if Deliveroo start driving demand for like in city DCs, basically, where they can store inventory for key product and maybe make it a bit more cost effective or operationally effective, I guess, for the brands or the retailer.
Yeah, the bit where I'm really keen to see two bits. Number one is where other collaborations come up, because you've already seen this with brand alignment between big retailers, where you like Argos is in home bases, for example. Then you've got connectivity between brands within groups, like the John Lewis partnership between John Lewis, Waitrose, etc. You've got all of the others, but seeing where this goes in terms of product targeting and like smart inventory management for e-com stock and being able to shift stock quicker, because I guess one of the big plays here is that ability to be able to tactically able to focus promotions, incentives around the product areas, that are easy to ship, that have got demand in the area, but that actually you've got quite large stock holdings of and want to free up stock space for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be interesting to see where this goes, actually, because I feel like, and I was thinking about this the other day, so when we did Pulse New York, one of the speakers was from Dick's Sporting Goods, and she was talking about I want to say it was 80% of their orders are fulfilled from stores, which has been like insane for them in terms of the speed of delivery and like customer satisfaction, et cetera. But I feel like there's a massive theme, or like there's a big trend that people were, investing in last mile and also doing a lot more ship from store. And then I think it completely disappeared. And then now it's kind of come back a little bit. And some of that's driven by like Harper and Ingrid, who have kind of brought solutions into the market. That's kind of where I've seen it. But yeah, I feel like that whole area, it feels like more, I guess like a lot of our clients probably wouldn't be equipped to start doing that. But yeah, it feels like there's still a lot of room to provide a better service and also like convert people better, probably, if you're able to fulfill orders like way quicker. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where it goes.
What do Mattel, Victoria Beckham, Sennheiser, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet. It also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify, powering the future of enterprise commerce. Find out more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Yeah, it's the US was especially a hot place for the last mile investment, and it was the big retailers like the Walmarts and Targets reacting to Amazon, who have loved them or hate them, and I'm in the latter camp, have always set the standard for that customer service piece, because no matter what you think about them, they are incredible at getting product to people quickly and low cost. Yeah, so yeah. It's interesting to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there's a lot of people, again, like me, without positioning myself in this kind of shallow convenience first customer. But I mean, I buy so much from Amazon just because I know that I can get it. If I order it now, it'll be with me up worst tomorrow morning. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people like that. And I think Amazon are probably trained at least a proportion of consumers to be like that. So yeah, there's definitely opportunity here.
Yeah, that one, and to be fair, they were the first company to make people realize that, guess what? People will pay a subscription for a delivery service when it was ridiculed as launch. And I've actually, Howard, I don't know when Prime launched, but I don't know, maybe 15 or so years ago. There's brands now that I would never expect to even consider something like that, or planning services around this as well. And every time you sit in a meeting, the reference point is, well, Prime does this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting, I think that would be a really interesting topic to unpick if you had the right day, because we've had some clients basically launch a paid membership, and there is proof behind the principle of like skin in the game driving order frequency and volume. And we've had quite a few clients that have wanted to do it and never done it. But yeah, that's an interesting, because ASOS was the other one that did it quite famously, and I think ended up net that benefiting from it. But yeah, it's an interesting topic in itself.
Let's move on to payments then, like what's been going on. So there was, for those of you listening who read our Inside Commerce newsletter, there we put a section in this week's one. Was it last week? I can't remember. No, it was last week, about payment trends. So WorldPay just landed their 2025 global payments rules. I recommend people downloading it. You've got to fill out a form, but it's free. It's got lots of interesting data. It's also got regional specifics. So if you're operating in a specific part of the world, or you're considering expanding into, it's got some useful regional data in there. But the bits that stood out for me is that buy now, pay later, which was adopted initially by, I guess, a lot of mass market brands, and not so prominent in premium space, where it was considered to be not for premium customers, not be reflective of the brand values. But actually, buy now, pay later has gone really mainstream and is considered as a default option now. It's I've not been in a business, and I've worked with I know you work with more premium than I do, but I've not worked with a premium business in the last like 3 to 5 years where there isn't a serious, either they are using it or they are intending to introduce it there, but the brand reticence about it is gone and the stigma around it is gone. And actually, when viewed with a strategic lens about how do we use it to benefit the customers, not just let's stick it on as a payment method because it gets us cash. It's amazing, and the data behind it is insane. As a payment method, it's grown more explosively than any other one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with everything you just said. I think the only bit of negative feedback I hear now is still the like creative director not liking a little pink clown icon, for example, and maybe not wanting to call it out, etc. But yeah, I think it's been it's super mainstream now. The other one that we talked a bit about was Harper, which I'm seeing more brands test out. They call it try for $5. But I tested it the other day. So I was buying something on Paul Smith, who are a client of ours, and I was using the discount code. And I just wanted to point that out just so I don't look like I'm trying to suggest I've got loads of money or anything. Anyway, so I decided to use it on there, and it's quite interesting how it's presented and how it's commed to someone that would have never heard of it before. But essentially, I ordered a pair of jeans, and then from that point of ordering, the product arrives within 2 days, and then I've got 7 days from the point of ordering, or 5 days from receiving them, to essentially decide if I want them, or I can just send them straight back before any payment is taken.
Yeah.
Which I think if he comms that in the right way, it is quite a nice proposition. And the other thing that it essentially promotes is the idea of ordering multiple items. So I could order 5 different styles of jeans. And then I could return. I might then be more likely to buy 2 if I've seen them, felt them, tried them on, etc. So that's kind of part of the value proposition. I think the only question mark I'd have would be, because I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of the fashion brands we work with have is the buyer that buys 3 sizes and then sends 2 back. And I think this would definitely promote that a little bit. But equally, from when I've spoken to them, I think there's quite a lot of data to kind of back up the incremental value in average order value and kind of basket size. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I am starting to see it pop up a bit more now.
It's a real dilemma for the e-commerce industry, because sustainability is a massive discussion point about the fact that how sustainable can e-commerce truly be, because at the end of the day, you've got technology running on servers, you've got delivery fleets going all around the country, you've got returns coming back, and it's people are always going to buy online, aren't they? How do you? I'm going to be really intrigued to watch this data evolve and what impact it has on reducing returns, because that's where it could be a massive win. Because there will be a percentage of people who would have ordered stuff, decided it's not quite right, sent it back, and there's a full return and nothing's been kept, versus those who order and actually, do you know what, that delivery had to be made anyway, but they're keeping something. So the to and from, it hasn't created any extra carbon footprint, but actually it's reduced an additional journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
The other discussion point that came out of that WorldPay report I think is a bit interesting is about this whole concept of cashless society. And again, a lot of people say it's like, we will soon be a cashless society. Everything's moving to digital wallets. More payments are moved into wallets onto smartphones because smartphone proliferation is huge. But quite interestingly, WorldPay is saying that the cash usage is only predicted to decline at 2% annual decline between now and 2030, which is not a rapid decrease in use of cash. When cash was, I'm trying to find the stat, I had it here, that at present, cash and cards is saying it's in e-coms about 34%, and it's expected to only drop to 21% by 2030. So I'm intrigued. Do you think we'll ever get to cashless? Do you ever think it's going to be possible for?
I mean, I think that's a really hard one to answer, but is that in relation to e-com? So is that like markets like the Middle East where there's still like a lot cash on delivery? Is it in relation to e-com, or is it physical retail included?
It's split out. So there's physical retail split out, POS separately, where it's 38% digital payments, which is anything that's done through like smartphone and non-contact, basically. And then cash and cards, handing something physical over, tapping with a card, is 62% in POS and expected to drop to 47%. So yeah, in e-com, predominantly that is cards, but there are, yes, cash-based options.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, obviously, I think it'd be really interesting to see that data over a 6-year period, so you can see the impact of COVID as well, and see kind of like how quickly it's got to a certain point. But I think that'll probably be, for the time being, whilst places still accept cash and certain industries are still like cash heavy, there'll probably be like a level where it'll get to, and then it'll probably stay around there. Because the other thing is tourism. So I think tourism is one of the biggest drivers of cash. And then obviously it's still a big part of like services and people trying to avoid tax ultimately. So yeah, I think that it's difficult to know, and I don't feel like I'm super educated on it, but I think the biggest issue would be, or the biggest driver of change would probably be like people's policies changing around it. Because I know there are a lot more retail stores now that are cashless, like you see the signs on the windows. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I haven't touched cash for so long. I don't know if you have, but I can't fit, like, because I'm about to get married and I'm getting married abroad, and every vendor that we're using is insisting on cash payment, without outing them too much. And that'll be the first time that I've got cash out for so long.
Well, I think my personal use is I can't be asked to have cash on me because it's another thing I can lose. And I think a lot of people, if you go out with cash, you need a wallet. If you go out of your phone with your card on your phone, you just need one thing when you're out. And if you lose it because of the encryption and stuff, the risk is less. You lose a wallet with 100 quid in, it's gone. And you lose a wallet with your bank card, someone can contact us, you go and tap the crap out of it, which has happened to me before. But I am weird. When I go abroad, like I've just been to France for a good friend's wedding, I bloody love foreign currency. It reminds me of being a kid, going into shops with like French francs and going, oh, look, I'm paying for it in a funny no. So yeah, I still have that. But in terms of e-com, there are markets where cash on delivery is, as you said, you talked about Middle East, but Germany as well. I think the interesting bit is going to be when the legislation changes that makes people have to offer that service to the customers because it's a legal requirement in that country, versus when it's no longer a legal requirement. And that's where, because it's not, the processes exist, but I don't think many retailers would want to offer like cash on delivery if they didn't have to.
Yeah, agree.
The other one I did, very quick one before we go on to the inevitable talk of AI stuff, is the shift to payment being made away from the e-com store. And we've had the PayPal talking about PayPal buy buttons in ads. So they create shoppable ads where you can basically pay a PayPal or Venmo directly through the ad rather than going to a retailer's store, which is very smart for PayPal to position against Shop Pay, given that how many Shopify stores default to Shop Pay and PayPal don't get the same percentage of transactions anymore. So that I thought was smart. But the one I was interested in, so Josh, your co-founder at Vivon, posted about Google's plan to use agentic AI to add items to your cart on a merchant's site. So it's going to, through the interface, enable you to search, command, find, and it'll add it to the cart, and you can then complete that checkout with Google Pay. What was your take on that? Because Google Pay tried to establish itself as a mobile wallet several years back, and Apple Pay smashed it out of the park because iOS was the primary driver for it. And Google Pay struggled to get meaningful growth. So I'm fascinated by whether anyone still cares about Google Pay.
But I mean, I think people use Google Pay via Chrome. So like, I use it Chrome, but only purely because I use Chrome. So if I'm paying on desktop and I've got the option, and quite often, not in the Shopify checkout, but in other checkouts, it will kind of Chrome will pre-prompt it as a way of paying. So I use it quite a lot of that. And I think, to be perfectly honest, the more the industry, with all the recent change in the industry, it's just becoming clearer and clearer how big an asset to Google Chrome is, because it does actually, I would actually say, like, you look at OpenAI and ChatGPT rivaling Google search, but, Chrome is so valuable to them for various reasons. So I'd say that's how I see Google Pay. And I think people probably do still use it, but almost entirely as a result of Chrome. Apple Pay obviously really benefits from Safari. I was actually going to talk about, I mean, it's interesting. So what you just described, I wrote a LinkedIn post this morning about Shopify and how well they've done recently and everything else. And then Liam Quinn, now of Visualsoft, formerly of Avon, made a comment about the only people that could compete with Shopify. Like, so there was quite a lot to the comment, but it was then about like someone coming in and out pricing Shopify. And I was basically thinking about I feel like Shopify is playing, again, I don't want to talk too much about Shopify, is volume, low barrier to entry. So I can't see that happening. But the one thing I could see happening as everything changes, I could see payment providers potentially creating a very cost-effective route. And there's obviously been quite a few plays on the pay by bank where you're essentially transacting directly with your bank and then you're not paying the processing fee.
Yes.
And I think that I could see a world where actually payments is commoditized quite a bit. And if you look in the world of subscriptions and you see a lot of these brands that are looking at moving Shopify, like the really high volume subscription vendors, a lot of them build their own subscription platform on top of Stripe. And actually the total cost of ownership is super low because they'll negotiate a super low rate with Stripe because all they're doing is using it for the payments. And then the software development costs are a lot lower if you're doing hundreds of millions via subscription than paying the Shopify rates or, Shopify Plus subscription vendor, etc. So I do wonder, it would be interesting to see where payments goes and how payments, like as an example with all the OpenAI stuff, there's a lot of rumors about Shopify. But in theory, if OpenAI build a checkout that isn't Shopify and then go with a very low rate payment provider, there could be a lot more kind of margin for them potentially. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting basically that how payment companies could potentially play a different role as the role of commerce potentially changes, or the current e-com experience.
Yeah, and I'm going to pause on the payments one because I think we could talk about this for quite a long time. Maybe we should have done the payment specific one, but there are such regional variations as well in terms of which payment methods. So like you're talking about banks, about real time account to account payments, A to A, which are very low here, have grown really rapid in places like Brazil and India. So you got all of these nuances about where the market's going. But let's move on to our next discussion point. Which is I was going to do personalized shopping, but I think given the fact that that we've already spoken to about 20 minutes and we could speak for hours on this particular episode, everyone wants to hear about our ranty views about AI because that's the topic that's everywhere. And we want to come into this topic of like what's the future of AI from the point of view of what's important right now and then what's a bit hyped and not necessarily relevant. But the structured product data for me is the really big one, and this has come up in with 3 clients in the last 6 months. And this is the fact that there is a rise in use of AI agents, and people will continue to be more agentic solutions that give interfaces to ask questions, put commands, to retrieve information, or even to execute tasks. We don't yet know how far in advance these agents will get and how quickly. But we've already got things like chatbot interfaces where you can you can get information back on orders, you can access and print returns labels directly from it. Lots of stuff you can do. In terms of like product discovery, what it's meaning is that the website has to be rigorously structured in order to have data semantically right for agents to understand and for it to be easily accessible, which comes back to the fact that if you go back to the original tenets of technical SEO, that's exactly what it was trying to do to websites, which was have the data clean, accurate, readable, legible, have it structured, use markup, ensure that it's indexable and readable, don't hide it behind loads of JavaScript, that don't embed important information in images so it's not read, it's got to be live. There are all of these foundations of technical SEO, which it almost feels like technical SEO over the last few years hasn't been having as much limelight as it should have had. But this now is bringing it right back, because if you do that right, then the agents should be in a good position to read your site and retrieve information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see where this one goes. Because everyone is talking about optimizing towards ChatGPT and like this chunking piece, and like collect or like extracting more data around like what people are searching for and using that within content, et cetera. But I also think I think it'll develop, and I think there'll probably be feeds used more. And I think, there'll be a lot more information provided, hopefully at some point, like the equivalent of Google Search Console, so that people have got better like tooling readily available to optimize towards this stuff. But yeah, completely agree. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how this side does develop. And I think because Josh has been talking quite a lot recently about the Google side of this and how more people are starting to use AI mode and how there's like a bit more to optimizing feeds and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of room for change in this space. So it'd be interesting keeping an eye on it.
Where do you think it will end up? I know this is like crystal ball and there's no guarantees, but do you think people will create specific data feeds for agents so that agents can go and retrieve it, and rather than having to go to have a connection to a site and then interpret for themselves?
I mean, I think all of what we've described, I could see it being a mix of all of it, to be perfectly honest. I think in terms of where it's likely to end up, like at the minute, there's a lot of people, that are predicting that everyone's going to shop via a conversation and via an agent. And I can't see a world where that's how like everyone's going to approach purchasing. I think it's always going to be a bit of a mix. I also think when you see these like really bold comments on LinkedIn about how that is the way it's definitely going to go, people have completely forgotten that like a huge proportion of purchases are originally discovered via TikTok or Meta, et cetera. So I think, they play a much bigger part in all of this. And I think people are, I guess it's just because Google's so big and they're going to be the most impacted by this, that everyone's just kind of forgetting about, that proportion of traffic and commerce and discovery. But yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting. I think there'll definitely be some new ways that people shop. But equally, I don't think it'll be a case of like the two, biggest journeys to finding product they're like dead. I think it's just that, there'll be additional ways that people find information, find new product, and ultimately buy. But in terms of the feeds piece, again, I mean, I think it's hard to tell, but obviously Google have gone down that route for product related stuff. But realistically, all of these solutions are going to need to do some level of crawling. It's more just about if they benefit from having a feed submitted maybe with slightly richer data. I think the other thing that people forget about is that inventory isn't always readily available. And that's a big part to this as well. And particularly if people want to start transacting within kind of, the LLMs and everything else, that'll need to be factored in, and like all of those orders will need to be passed through to different systems. So yeah, I think overall, I think that there'll probably be a place for feeds with all the other kind of LLMs outside of just Google. But I think it'll probably end up being a mix, personally.
Yeah, and it's there've been so many false dawns in e-commerce where a new bit of tech or a new way of engaging with customers, and all of a sudden people are like, everyone's going to be using. I remember virtual shopping malls, and that was probably about 10 years ago, this is like well before Web3 and all these virtual worlds. But a virtual shopping mall where you could have all your products and so people could walk around like they're in a shop rather than being on a website and a catalog and a hierarchy. And there were technology vendors pushing that as a future, and there was hype around it, and a few people tried it and it was all right. And actually where it ended up was very, very different. It ended up in just the UX of e-com websites evolving to make it easier for people to do product discovery, and we're still in that cycle. I'm very cynical about this whole, I'm with you, everyone's going to end up ordering agentically. I just don't buy it either. I can see it working exceptionally well in some verticals where there's a complex process to selecting a product, and therefore the ability to interrogate and refine and have an agent that can intelligently go off and do the donkey work for you. Like travel would be a classic example for me, where I can see agents being so important in the future of that ability to go, right, I've got a budget of £1,000 and I need to get a minimum 3-star hotel which has and it needs to be on these dates and that I can see, but I can't see if somebody wants to buy a t-shirt. I'm not convinced that for basic purchases people are going to go to that trouble, because the value add is not really there. And I think my advice to people at the moment is, don't worry about that. We're not there yet to know how that is going to work technically, process and what use cases. But the structured product piece is big, and it will have an impact. And the bit where it's most going to have the biggest impact quickly, if you don't get it right, is on product discovery in these LLMs and these agents, where you might actually not be found. And even things like Google's AI overviews. And getting that, when we did that episode with Sam from Novos recently, and talking about how you win that space. So for me at the moment, I think it's less obsession about how do I get my products sellable in that, but more about how do I get them discoverable.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I think we obviously talked a bit about with Sam about that, and I think the obviously we're all coming at it from a commerce angle, but I think it's important to remember like the non-commerce content as well, because that's going to be a lot less likely to be feed based, and that's an important part of all of this as well.
Let's now go on to the one of the big things that we talk about, and one of the reasons we want to do this episode is about AI is being massively hyped, and there is some self-interest around doing that. Yeah, there are, we've both seen it, some conversations around, if e-commerce teams aren't adapting and embracing AI in their roles and their business, and now they'll be obsolete, blah, 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 which I don't agree with. I was going to say, I'm going to say bollocks, actually. Let's just get a word out there. I don't agree with it, because a business doesn't become unviable overnight just because it hasn't adopted the latest technology. Might mean that there has some inefficiencies, and maybe it has some cost inefficiency in it that it could avoid if it embraced it further, but it doesn't mean it's suddenly going to be a non-viable business. Let's talk about, there's a few strands here. The area that I personally see and speak to my clients the most about, and where I've seen good wins, is focusing on from a customer service point of view, and helping customer service teams to not have to repetitively answer the same questions or do low value tasks for customers, things that are constantly getting asked, like, where's my order? Or, can I cancel my order? Or, what's my order tracking number? All of those things, which actually, if you have the data in the right place, you can give that a chatbot access to that to be able to then go and find that information and return it within the chat interface. So I've seen one of my clients said they reduced their inbound ticket account by over 50% in the first 3 to 4 weeks by doing it. It was mainly order related. That's the area for me where I think if people are wanting to get tangible benefits without overcomplicating their business, that's where they go.
Yeah, so I think I've definitely seen the same. And one of the solutions that we talked a little bit about a second ago was Digital Genius. So I think most of our clients are definitely like kind of using AI in this area now, some of which are a bit more simple, and then some of which have gone down the route of investing in a solution like Digital Genius, where there's a bit more control over it, a bit more room to kind of train, a bit more room to kind of integrate with order management, etc., etc. So that's been something that I've had pretty much entirely positive feedback on. I think the other area across our clients is translation. So even when it's not perfect, even when people have manual translations, like a lot of our clients now are using particularly ChatGPT with some level of like training, and then manually intervening, or whatever the right term is, but basically then manually optimizing after, and that's been really efficient. And then maybe on top of that, just content generation. I think the other thing where there's a lot of scaremongering is in the media space, creative. So you see a lot of people who are like, we're creating 10,000 assets a month purely via AI. And, you know, if you're not doing the same, you're wasting your time, or you're, you know, not hitting the numbers you should be, blah, blah, blah. And whilst I do think, I mean, in all of this, there's so much opportunity, but it's definitely not. I just think there's, like you said, there's just so many people shouting on LinkedIn and kind of trying to force people to, you know, go a certain way. But I think the biggest thing that I've seen and learned so far within the AI space is that, you know, if you go and build something, or if you go and double down and, you know, invest all your time in creating a solution in AI, realistically there'll be a better solution that, you know, someone with a lot more money and time than you has created very, very quickly. And I think most of our clients are outside of translations, information processing, and customer service. I think the majority are, you know, buying a new vendor, so an equivalent of a Digital Genius as an example, or relying on, you know, their ecom platforms, the Klaviyo or equivalent. The other one I talked about that I think the one that I've been most impressed with, that I've actually seen people using on a day-to-day basis, is probably Triple Whale, where our team is constantly using their Mobi solution, you know, using their agents, etc., etc. And whilst I think, you know, if you've got the right team and resources available, it's great to, you know, build on top of solutions or build your own kind of solutions around your individual needs. I think there's a lot of, you know, our average client is definitely not doing that. They're buying software based on their AI capability and their roadmap, which I think is probably what most are doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. I currently don't work with any business where there is a competitive advantage to build their own AI capability. It's about using the appropriate tools to help gain efficiency, and that is across customer service. Number one, it is internal process. So often this is looking at more on the operational side of the business, such as in middlewares, where AI capability can help with things like routing. It can help things with enrichment of data before it's passed between systems, so that there's no manual processes doing it. And it's about content. And so one example, which is a great example, is a client who had an SEO fail in an audit because they hadn't done alt tags on images. It was an oversight. I was like, well, Christ, you got 2,500 images to add to alt tags to. You're not doing that manually unless you want to just waste a week of your life. But actually, there's an app, and I road tested 3 apps and found one which actually came up with accurate, might not be 100% perfect, but accurate, relevant, contextually relevant stuff. That's $50 to do that across the 2,500 versus how many days and how much cost. So there's all these elements where I think fundamentally AI is right. But yeah, it's not about strategically pivot to be an AI-driven business. It's tactically use AI to improve efficiency and get cost gains.
Yeah, completely agree.
The one I'm interested about, final discussion point on this, because I know, again, we could go off into lots of different tangents on AI, is AI replacing jobs. And what do you think about it? Because I saw I've read quite a few articles, again, mainly on LinkedIn, in the hype cycle that it's in, about, you got to protect yourself in the future. Jobs are going, AI is replacing humans. You've got to reskill, blah, 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 apocalypse bollocks. And it's hard to find really good data out there to validate what impact it's having and at what scale. But there was a really good report from Goldman Sachs where they've researched in the US across lots of different industries, roles that could be impacted, how they would impact it, and how AI is currently impacting and what it's doing to the job market. And the stats they came up with is that innovation related to AI could displace 6 to 7% of the US workforce if it's widely adopted. But the impact is most likely transitory because new job opportunities will be created by the same technology to put people into work in other capacities. What's your take? Are you seeing anything where roles are going, or are you seeing more about like repurposing of roles?
I think the risk is there for roles to be impacted. I think in our industry, I don't think it'll be as aggressive as in some other industries. I do think the risk is there, but equally, I think it's more about how people use AI. And like you said, I think there's the opportunity to kind of like supplement rather than replace. I think there's the opportunity for, just investing more in different areas, etc. I mean, it is interesting with the AI stuff because I'm really critical of like how everyone's talking about it. It's obviously still relatively early, but I do think it's going to change a lot. But like you say, I think that, customer service is probably a good example where when there might be companies that have 20 customer service agents now that have 4 in the future, but actually they've got additional roles around it who are like monitoring effectiveness or other kind of roles that might exist around it. But I think my view is that in 5 years' time, I think a lot of like manual work will be automated. And, there'll probably just be additional roles alongside kind of what we have now where people are to use and budget more effectively in other areas.
The big change that I can foresee coming is fewer reasons to say, we don't have the time to do that. And I know that there are genuine reasons why we all, either as consultants, agencies, or people who are running e-com teams, have a genuine reason to say, we don't have the time to do that, or we can't ship that in the roadmap because of other priorities. But if we increase automation and reduce unnecessary manual tasks or complexity for people so that 20% of their time is freed up because we have an agent or a process that's running, it's done it, doing it for you, that time can be spent on being more proactive. And I'll give you one tangible example. A client who reduced number of inbound inquiries and tickets in their customer service system by introducing that AI agent. So they had fewer order inquiries. Where's my order? They had fewer requests for like, I want to add something, because they would, based on the order status, it would say your order is no longer able to be edited. Contact customer service. Then some people would, some people wouldn't. They've reduced the number of inquiries on that. But actually what it enabled them to do, the area where they were falling down and they were getting lots of complaints, which was then impacting reviews and ratings, was when there was a major problem or someone was pissed off, their speed of response to resolve it was really slow because they were drowning under the volume of inbound inquiries. So actually stripping those out, all of a sudden you've got a sharper process of customers pissed off. What's the issue? Okay, that's something we need to step on. Right, let's proactively resolve that. I can call that customer. And you get this proactivity, and it becomes a more satisfying job as well, because you're not just dealing with like, right, check all the status, send it. It's okay, I've got a real human connection here. I've got a relationship I can build with the customer. I've got something to do that's going to add value to the business and the customer and me. So that's where that for me is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think let's bring that to an end. I know Paul and I could chat for hours about this as opinionated consultants. If there's anything on the podcast that's piqued your interest, you want to talk to us more, anything you disagree with, do reach out, do tell us you disagree. We love conversations, and hopefully you found it interesting. You know where to find us if you want to chat more.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gurd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.